Good morning, everyone. Today's Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. It's 9 a.m. We're here in council chambers for the hearing examiner hearings. I'm calling the hearings to order at this time. Before we start the hearings proper, I'm going to introduce our process. The process that we follow here in Cape Coral is a little bit different than the process that's followed in other jurisdictions. In our process, the clerk will read the introduction of the case, and then the clerk will swear in anyone who is testifying. Then city staff testifies regarding with compliance with public notice. If public notice is found to have been properly accomplished, then we go forward with the hearing. If not, we do something else that we'll discuss at that time. Assuming public notice is found, then the applicant will go first and presents an entire case. The city staff will go second and present an entire case. Public comment is then open. If you're here for public comment, please make sure your comments are comprehensive, because once the public comment is closed, it will not be reopened. The applicant then responds to questions and makes any final comments. Staff does the same, and then the hearing is closed. If you have a cell phone with you today, please turn it off or silence it, and take any cell phone conversations outside the room if possible. If you wish to have a private conversation, please move away from the speaker's lectern so we do not accidentally record your conversation. If you are so recorded, your conversation then becomes public record. If you have something to share today, please come to the microphone so that we can properly record your testimony. All testimony must be under oath. Members of the public are requested to go to the microphone on the podium, which is to my left, your right, and it has the same video and audio capability as the other lectern. Everyone who provides testimony is requested to provide a public participation card. That would not apply to the applicant or staff. The function of that is so that we can properly spell your name. If you wish a copy of the hearing examiner recommendation or order, as the case may be, please provide your email contact information. However, please also note that if you do so provide your email, it becomes a public record at that time. With those preliminary comments, I'd like to turn it over to the clerk to call the first case. Thank you.
Case number VAC 23-000001. Address Northeast Pine Island Road and Northeast 13th Avenue. Applicant Miguel Lulinski. The owner, Shops at Del Sol LLC, requests to vacate a 20-foot wide platted alley and underlying easements in Block 2022. The owner also requests to vacate platted easements in Block 2022 located to the north and south of this alley. The petitioner owns about 7.54 acres along Pine Island Road between Northeast 10th Place and Northeast 13th Avenue, about 0.4 miles west of Del Prado Boulevard. This property has a Pine Island Road District future land use classification and commercial corridor zoning. The vacation of this alley will join 8 sites north of the alley with 4 sites to the south of this right-of-way. This alley vacation will facilitate property assemblage under common ownership, thereby increasing the area and depth of the consolidated site. In turn, this single expanded site will provide the owner with greater flexibility in designing a future project for this property. Excuse me. The vacation of the platted easements will eliminate easement no longer necessary, as the consolidated site will maintain a perimeter easement. This application meets city standards established for vacation requests and is consistent with applicable policies appearing in the comprehensive plan. Planning and staff recommends approval of these vacation requests with conditions. Any person giving testimony today, if you are able, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, Mr. Struve.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Mike Struve, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. Staff did notice this case, and that included placing an ad in the newspaper 10 days in advance of this hearing date, posting, in this case, multiple signs on the subject property, advertising the case, and also sending out letters to all affected property owners within 500 feet of these sites.
Thank you. I will find the proper notice was accomplished.
Thank you.
Thank you. May we have the applicant's rep up, please? Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Veronica Martin with TDM Consulting, representing the applicant Miguel Lulinski, managing member of the Shops at Del Sol LLC. The clerk did a great job making my presentation for me, but I do have a PowerPoint and formal presentation. Excuse me. As the clerk mentioned, the request before you today is to vacate the platted alley right-of-way and all underlying easements between lots 1 through 11 and Tract A in Block 2022, to vacate the platted easements in Lot 1 through 11, Block 2022, and the platted easements in Tract A, Block 2022. Staff has recommended approval with conditions. The applicant has reviewed those conditions and agrees to comply with those conditions. I did provide an aerial map of the subject property. As you can see, it's at the northwest corner of Northeast Pine Island Road and Northeast 13th Ave, as identified in red. It's approximately 0.4 miles west of the intersection of Pine Island Road and Del Prado Boulevard. The property is zoned commercial corridor as shown in pink. All surrounding properties are also in the commercial corridor, and the properties are in the Pine Island Road District Future Land Use Classification. A little bit of background: the applicant has assembled 12 properties totaling 7.54 acres for future development. All the lots in the assemblage are vacant and unimproved. There is a 20-foot wide alley that separates the 8 lots to the north from the 4 lots to the south. The alley is also unimproved at this time. The applicant is requesting to vacate the alley, the easements underlying the alley, and the platted easements on the north and south sides of the alley as depicted in the sketch and legal descriptions provided. As required, the applicant has provided proof of unified ownership of the properties for which this vacation is requested. Letters of no objection to this vacation have been provided from all local utility providers. Sketches and legal descriptions for the alley and easements to be vacated have been provided by Harris Jorgensen, Inc., professional surveyors and mappers. And a sketch and legal description of the proposed easement to protect an existing LCEC distribution pole has been provided to staff and approved by LCEC. This slide is actually a sketch and a sketch of the alley to be vacated. It's 20 foot wide. As you can see, there's a 6 foot wide strip on either side of the alley retained to maintain that perimeter easement around the entire subject property. This slide shows all of the internal easements to the north of that alley to be vacated. And again, we're maintaining the perimeter easement. The last slide shows the sketch of the easement south of that alley, and again shows the 6 foot wide strip maintaining that perimeter easement. The analysis of the vacation request per Land Development Code, Section 3.4.5B, whether the plat, easements, or rights-of-way are required by the city for any future transportation, access, water management, or public utility purposes. The applicant does own all lots abutting the alley. The alley is currently unimproved and not used for access. Vacating the alley allows the applicant to combine several parcels into a single site for future development. All utility providers did provide letters of no objection to vacating the alley and easements. A continuous perimeter easement will be provided for public utilities and drainage, and the existing LCEC facilities will be protected by an easement provided by the applicant. Number 2, whether any required easements are necessary to accommodate the vacation of any plat, easement, or right-of-way. Again, LCEC did require a new easement to protect that distribution pole. We did provide an easement. We do have approval from LCEC, and we will record that easement. Number 3, if alternate routes are required or available that do not cause adverse impacts to surrounding areas, alternate routes are not needed since the alley is unimproved and not used for access, and the adjacent roadway is sufficient to provide vehicular access in this area. Number 4, if the closure of a right-of-way negatively impacts areas utilized for vehicle to turn around and exit an area, eliminating the alley will not have a negative impact on the area since the alley is unimproved. The existing surrounding roadway network is sufficient and will provide access to all the properties in the area. And lastly, number 5, whether the local utility providers have given consent to the vacation of the plat, easement, or right-of-way. And again, we did provide the letters of no objection. We are maintaining the 6-foot wide perimeter easement, and we will record the proposed easement for LCEC to protect their distribution pole. For the comprehensive plan analysis, this request is consistent with policy 1.15, table 1. The table shows that the commercial corridor zoning of the property is consistent with the Pine Island Road future land use category. In policy 3.6, the city may consider the vacation of rights-of-way to facilitate land assembly and the development of a unified contiguous commercial project. The alley separates the 8 lots to the north of the alley from the 4 larger lots south of the alley. Vacating that alley and the internal easements allows the applicant to assemble those lots into a site that's much larger in area and depth and allows for greater flexibility in design for the future commercial development. That does end my presentation. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do you wish to incorporate the staff report into your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Mr. Struve.
Good morning again, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Mike Struve, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. And I would like to request for the purposes of this hearing that I be recognized as an expert in the area of land use planning based on my credentials on file with the City Clerk's Office and my past testimony before you previously in similar matters.
I will find you as an expert based upon your CV, which is on file with the clerk, and also based upon your prior testimony in hearings before me regarding matters that are similar to those we're discussing today. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a privately initiated vacation request. The owner is Shops at Del Sol, LLC. You already heard from the petitioner's authorized representative, Veronica Martin. There are multiple vacation requests here. The owner is seeking to vacate platted alley right-of-way and underlying easements between lots 1 through 11 and Track A, all located in Block 2022. Platted easements in lots 1 through 11, which those properties and easements are north of the platted alleyway, and then the applicant is also seeking to vacate platted easements located in Track A, which is south of the platted alley. This vacation request does include several parcels, all located, as Ms. Martin indicated, a little less than half of a mile west of the intersection of Del Prado and Pine Island Road, and these sites are north of Pine Island Road. This is an aerial map showing the sites where the easements are requested to be vacated, outlined in red. The black arrow points to the platted alleyway that runs east to west and divides 8 sites located to the north to 4 sites to the south. And if I can find the cursor here, which I'm having difficulty in doing, not highlighted here are a couple of other properties with frontage on Pine Island Road that extend from the applicant's properties indicated in red here westward to Northeast 10th Place. So the applicant does own additional land, and considerably additional more land that is actually shown here that is highlighted in red. They're just not seeking to vacate easements on those properties. This is a zoning map. All subject sites have a Pine Island Road District future land use classification and commercial corridor zoning, as do all sites within 500 feet of these properties. The petitioner owns 12 sites. Collectively, the area is 7.5 acres. There have been no improvements on these sites. There is a 20-foot wide, unimproved platted alley that separates 8 smaller sites located to the north of this alley from 4 larger sites to the south of the alley. And easements underlying the alley, as well as platted easements north and south of the alley, are requested to be vacated by the petitioner. We looked at this application to ascertain or determine whether or not the petitioner had met the minimum standards identified in the Land Development Code. And the petitioner has provided evidence or proof of color of title for all the parcels covered by the plat for which these vacations are sought. They've also provided correspondence from the utility providers. The utility providers have provided the city with letters of no objection, although a couple of those letters did include conditions, and those conditions of approval appear in staff's conditions of approval that I'll get to at the end of my presentation. And then lastly, the applicant has provided sketches and accompanying legal descriptions for the vacated areas and easements. And these sketches are identical to the ones I believe Ms. Martin showed earlier, first showing the platted alley that would be vacated. Again, this alleyway is unimproved. These are easements that are requested to be vacated by the applicant. I do want to point out that while the vacation of these easements may remove an encumbrance on the property and certainly may provide some assurance from title companies or insurers not having to deal with these easements on the site. These are not easements necessarily that the city would request the applicant to vacate to develop these sites. And then likewise, these are platted easements requested to be vacated, located on the applicant's site south of the subject alleyway. We've analyzed these requests consistent with those standards that appear in the Land Development Code, section 3.4.5B. There are 5 standards, and I'm going to discuss with you staff's recommended findings for each standard. The first standard is whether the plat, easements, or rights-of-way are required by the city for any future transportation, access, water management, or any other public purpose. Currently, this alleyway is unimproved, so it has not been paved. That means that the alleyway cannot be utilized and is not being utilized by vehicular traffic. The petitioner owns all properties that abut this alleyway, and the petitioner, through the local street network, has or will have right-of-way access off of local streets to all of those sites. So this particular alley is not being used currently. we don't see a foreseeable need in providing access to these sites in the future. Likewise, any service providers could gain access to the petitioner's property in the future, whether that is providing services related to solid waste pickup, or even if it was involved in emergency management vehicle. So for these reasons, we do not see a foreseeable need in the future for this alley. Easements underlying the alley are not needed. The city lacks infrastructure in the alley. As Ms. Martin mentioned, LCEC does have some facilities located near the eastern end of this particular alleyway that will be protected by an easement provided by the owner. Likewise, the platted easements, talking about the easements that are located north and south of the platted alley, will also not be needed. A continuous perimeter easement will be retained around the expanded site for future utility installation and maintenance. Second standard is whether any required easements are necessary to accommodate the vacation of any plat, easement, or right-of-way. In this case, there is one new easement that the city will require as a condition of approval, and that is for protecting LCEC facilities, in particular a distribution pole and an anchor that provides support for that pole near the eastern end of the alleyway. Easements along both ends of the alley right-of-way will be retained by the city, again, for maintaining a perimeter easement around the entire 7.5 acre site. Third standard is there are alternative routes required or available that do not cause adverse impacts to the surrounding area. In this case, staff finds that alternative routes are not needed as the alley is unpaved. It's not used by vehicles. The entire alley will be vacated, and this existing street network will be sufficient to provide access to all of these sites. Fourth standard is whether the closure of the right-of-way negatively affects areas utilized for vehicles to turn around and exit an area. So in this case, eliminating the alley will not have a negative effect on the area since the alley is unpaved and cannot be used in its current condition. This particular request differs from some other requests where the city has vacated part of a street right-of-way or maybe even part of an alleyway. And in those cases, generally the city would require either some type of cross-access easement to provide an avenue for vehicles to exit the alley onto a local street, or in some cases, in particular, to allow for service vehicles to turn around. It may require like a cul-de-sac on part of the applicant site to allow either an emergency management vehicle or even a service delivery truck to turn around within the alley and head back out. That's not necessary in for this particular request. And then 5, whether the local utility providers have given consent to the vacation of the plat, easements, or right-of-way. All 3 utility providers have issued letters of no objection, although 2 were qualified. 6-foot wide easements on the east and west ends of the alley will be retained by the city, and that's a pretty standard condition that we find in LCEC letters of no objection. Also required by LCEC is an easement from the owner to protect their existing facilities on the eastern or near the eastern side of the alleyway. In addition to that, we have a condition of approval, and I believe it was from CenturyLink that if any existing facilities were found and damaged in their easements, that those would be those repairs would be made at the expense of the owner and relocated to an existing new easement. And that is also captured in a staff condition of approval. As Ms. Martin mentioned, these requests are consistent with two policies appearing in the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. Policy 1.15, Table 1, which we generally cite, shows what zoning districts are consistent with which particular future land use classifications, and in this case, the commercial corridor zoning district is consistent with the Pine Island Road District future land use classification. This request is also consistent with policy 3.6 in that same element that says the city may consider the vacation of rights-of-way to facilitate land assembly and the development of a unified contiguous commercial project. In this case, it's a pretty good example of that. We're vacating this alley. Will allow 8 sites to the north of the alley to be joined or combined with 4 sites to the south. That will provide for a single consolidated site. This will provide the owner with greater flexibility in designing the site and certainly in determining where different buildings on the site could be placed. And overall, this will again provide greater flexibility for the owner, not just in designing a particular project, but potentially in designing multiple projects should this property be subdivided. Staff is recommending approval of these requests with conditions of approval. Before I start to go over those, I do want to mention that we have not received any letters or emails or phone calls regarding this particular request. And I'll go ahead and read these conditions into the record. The first condition is the vacation of the alley right-of-way in Block 2022, Unit 31. Cape Coral subdivision shall be consistent with that shown in the sketch and accompanying legal description prepared by Harris Jorgensen LLC entitled Proposed Vacation of an Alley Lying in a Portion of Block 2022, Cape Coral Unit 31, dated November 11th, 2022, that appears in Exhibit A. 2, the vacation of platted easements lying in lots 1 through 11, Block 2022, Unit 31, Cape Coral subdivision shall be consistent with that shown in the sketch and accompanying legal description prepared by Harris Jorgensen LLC entitled Proposed Vacation of Portion of a Public Utility and Drainage Easement lying in a portion of lots 1 through 11, Block 2022, Cape Coral Unit 31, dated November 11th, 2022, that appears in Exhibit B. 3, the vacation of platted easements lying in Track A, Block 2022, Unit 31, Cape Coral subdivision, shall be consistent with that shown in the sketch and accompanying legal description prepared by Harris Jorgensen LLC entitled Proposed Vacation of Portion of a Public Utility and Drainage Easement lying in a portion of Track A, Block 2022, Cape Coral Unit 31, dated November 11th, 2022, that appears in Exhibit C. Fourth, within 90 days of the adoption of this resolution, the developer shall provide the city with a public utility easement for protecting existing LCEC facilities, consistent with that shown in the sketch and accompanying legal description prepared by Harris Jorgensen LLC, entitled Proposed Public Utility Easement lying in a portion of Block 2022, Cape Coral, Unit 31, dated September 22nd, 2022, that appears in Exhibit D. This easement shall be reviewed and deemed acceptable by the city property broker prior to acceptance by the city.
May I interrupt you for a moment?
Certainly.
Is it the plan of the property broker to review this prior to the city council review this matter? I mean, if you know, you may not know.
It's not necessary. I think that we will likely send it over to the property broker to take a look at it. If she has an opportunity to do that prior to this time, I think that certainly is fine, but I don't think that that would disqualify from having this condition appearing in the eventual resolution that'll go to the city council,
Okay, thank
sort of based on past practice.
Okay, thank you.
Fifth, in the event CenturyLink facilities are found in the vacated area, the petitioner shall be responsible for bearing the cost of relocating the facilities to a new easement. In the event CenturyLink facilities are damaged during construction activities, the petitioner shall bear the cost of relocating the facilities to a new easement and repairing said facilities.
And should we say petitioner or owner or developer? I think petitioner might be a little limited.
We would certainly, we are using petitioner and owner sort of synonymously in the context of our presentation, but it probably should say owner in the event that the property were to change hands. So we would certainly support that change.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Sorry to interrupt you.
Not at all. Condition 6, the city shall retain easements sufficient for maintaining a minimum 6-foot wide public utility and drainage easement coincident with the perimeter of the owner's expanded site. So there we did use owner. 7, the petitioner shall reimburse the city of Cape Coral the cost of recording this resolution with the office of the Lee County Clerk of Court. And then 8th and lastly, the city shall record this resolution with the office of the Lee County Clerk of Court following the receipt of the recording fees from the petitioner.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to incorporate your staff report?
Yes, I would like to request that that be done, and I'm available in case you have any questions.
I have no questions, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Are there members of the public who wish to provide input or testimony? Seeing none, I'll return it back to the applicant's representative. Ms. Martin, could you come up, please? Thank you. Do you have any objection to the, taking up petitioner and adding owner or some other representation?
That's perfectly acceptable. Thank you.
Do you have a preferred term?
I would rather it say owner.
Owner, all right. Yeah, I thought so. All right, any further testimony based upon Mr. Struve's testimony or my questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Mr. Struve, anything else?
I have nothing else, Madam Hearing Examiner.
Okay, fine. I will recommend that the vacation go forward as requested by the applicant and as supported by staff with the modification in the condition to change it from petitioner to owner as appropriate. And I will attempt to get the recommendation as quickly as possible. So thank you very much. All right. Closing that hearing and opening the next one. Madam Clerk, thank you.
Case number VAC 23-000004, address 5624 and 5620 Del Rio Court, applicant Windward Construction. The vacation involves adjacent two properties located at 5624 and 5620 Del Rio Court. The owners request to vacate street right-of-way along the underlying easements. Platted easements associated with each property are also requested to be vacated. Both properties are at the end of a cul-de-sac street. Demolition permits were recently issued by the city for each site. Each owner, through the vacation process, will enlarge their site and eliminate unnecessary easements to allow for greater flexibility in constructing a new single-family home. Staff recommends approval with conditions that include constructing a new stormwater inlet in the right-of-way and extending an existing drainage pipe to connect to the inlet and removing pavement from the vacated area. Any persons giving testimony today, if you are able, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, Ms. Ford.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Candace Ford, Associate Planner with the City Planning Division. I am here to affirm that the case was properly noticed. We did place an ad in the newspaper, a sign was posted on site, and we did send out mailers to all residents within 500 feet to let them know.
Thank you. I will find the proper notice was given. May we have the applicant up, please, or applicant's representative, I should say. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hague. It's been a while.
It's been a while. All right. I'm not sure if I'll get this right on the,
I'm sure staff would be glad to help
well,
you.
yeah, maybe if we could get a little bit of a hand on the technology. Uh-oh.
I think it's been changed since the last time you were here.
Help. There we go. Thank you. Good morning. We are requesting the
Could you
vacation.
identify yourself for the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry, Brian Hogg, Windward Construction.
Thank you.
Good morning. We're here to request the vacation of a hammerhead at the end of Del Rio Court, situated between two homeowners, 5620 Del Rio Court and 5624 Del Rio Court. The actual hammerhead that we're vacating is going to be divided asymmetrically between the two property owners. The intent here is to give access to 5624 Del Rio Court, which is really the only property that's serviced by the hammerhead. In terms of analysis and reviewing the staff report, whether the plat, easements, or rights-of-way are required by the city for future transportation, access, water management, or public utility, the right-of-way is at the end of Del Rio Court and only services access to 5624 Del Rio Court. As I said, the property is going to be divided asymmetrically. Whether any required easements are necessary to accommodate the vacation of any plat, staff analysis, sufficient easements are going to be retained around the property, and I believe staff has our copies of the actual new plat or the new surveys showing the continuous easement. If alternate routes are required available that do not cause adverse impacts, the cul-de-sac is still free and clear to be used by the general public to turn around in the right-of-way. Let's see, and whether local utility providers have given consent. We do have letters of no objection from all three utility providers, and obviously it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to incorporate the staff report into your presentation?
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Could we have staff up, please?
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. Once again, Candace Ford, Associate Planner with the City Planning Division. I will be presenting case VAC 23-000004. As previously mentioned, the addresses are going to be 5620 and 5624 Del Rio Court. The applicants are going to be 5624 Del Rio Court LLC and ISARD Properties LLC. The applicants are requesting to vacate 2,363 square feet of Del Rio Court right-of-way and all underlying easements adjacent to lots 11 through 13. The second request would be to vacate 465 square feet of platted easements lying in lot 11. And the third request is going to be to vacate 459 square feet of platted easements lying in lots 12 and 13. The subject parcels, are highlighted in red, and then the outer ring is going to show all the residents within the 500-foot mailing buffer. The zoning is currently R1 for single-family residential. The future land use has a single-family future land use classification, and it has been that way for quite some time. A little bit of background about the sites. The two sites are currently between 13,004 square feet and then 16,560 square feet, and they are predominantly within a residential area of the city. The sites are along the Del Rio Canal, which has a platted width of roughly 80 feet in width. Each owner did receive demolition permits during the last year in order to expand their sites and rebuild. Criteria that's stated in the LDC section 3.4.5 One is whether the plat, easements, or right-of-way are required by the city for any future transportation, access, water management, or public utility purposes. The right-of-way that's at the end of Del Rio Court, it's at the end of a dead-end area between the two petitioner sites. There's really, no need for it. As previously mentioned, it only accesses for one of the petitioner sites, providing them access. The right-of-way will be divided asymmetrically between the two, and this will allow a new driveway for 5624 when they come in for a redevelopment. With the closure of the right-of-way, this will not impede traffic in that local area, and it will still allow people to use the cul-de-sac and turn around as needed. Point B is easements underlying the vacated right-of-way as well as the platted easements will not be needed since the city will retain the 6-foot required perimeter easements around the each expanded site. Point C is that a drainage pipe occupying lot 11 that does convey stormwater to the Del Rio Canal will need to be extended to access the new city right-of-way, and this will follow the vacation with a new inlet being constructed, and that is a condition of approval, which will be at the end of the staff report, or the presentation, excuse me. Number 2 is whether any required easements are necessary to accommodate the vacation of any plat, easement, or right-of-way. We are requesting a 6-foot wide perimeter easement, which the applicant has agreed to, and the stormwater drain will be extended out. At this time, it doesn't seem that a easement will be need to be provided, but that is something that stormwater might want to weigh in on at the end. Point 3 is if alternative routes are required or available that do not cause adverse impacts to surrounding areas. The only part of the right-of-way that's requested to be vacated is in that dead-end area of Del Rio Court. It does not provide access to any of the other properties, minus 5624, so no alternative routes are necessary. Traffic can still go around the cul-de-sac. This will not impede any emergency vehicles or anything of that effect. Point 4 is if the closure of the right-of-way negatively affects area utilized for vehicle turnaround and exit. As previously mentioned, it will not. They can still use the turnaround in the cul-de-sac as needed. Point 5 is whether local utility providers have given consent to the vacation of plat, easements, or right-of-ways, and if the local utility providers may require additional easements or relocation of existing utilities facilities to complete the vacation. All 3 providers did provide letters of no objection regarding the vacation areas. LCEC does require the standard 6-foot wide perimeter easement, which the applicants are agreeable to. When it comes to the comprehensive plan, the city lacks specific policies in the comprehensive plan for vacations involving residentially zoned lands, but the future land use element does adhere to table 1, policy 1.15. It does identify R1 as being compatible with the future land use category. And it does meet policy 1.5 in the sense that even with the expanded sites for the 2 properties, they will not exceed more than 4.4 units per acre. They will only be about 2.53 and 2.83 dwelling units per acre, so well below the 4.4. Planning staff recommends approval with conditions of the vacation, and it will be noted that before hearing examiner meeting this morning, staff did not receive any objections or agrees to this vacation request. I did have someone come in last week just to inquire what exactly the vacation case was, but they didn't have an opinion one way or the other. And I can go over the conditions of approval that will be submitted. The first one is going to be that the vacation of the Del Rio Court, consisting of the 2,363 square feet of road right-of-way and underlying easements, shall be consistent with that being shown in Exhibit A that's been prepared by Adura. Point 2 is the vacation of platted easements consisting of the 465 square feet lying in Lot 11 shall be consistent with the Exhibit B as shown, prepared by Adura. The vacation of platted easements consisting of 459 square feet lying in lots 12 and 13 shall be consistent with the shown in the sketch and accompanying legal description prepared by Adura. That's part of Exhibit C. And the city shall retain easement sufficient for maintaining the 6-foot wide perimeter easement, and that will be shown in Exhibit D and Exhibit E. Point 5 is conditions to the prior to the issuance, of a certificate of occupancy for the new house at 5620 Del Rio Court. The owner of the site shall move or replace the new and existing stormwater pipe on Lot 11 and extend this pipe to a new inlet constructed within the new city right-of-way. At the sole discretion of the city, the applicant shall grant all necessary easements for any new or modified stormwater system if required. All improvements shall be inspected by the city prior to the issuance of the CO, and the cost of all improvements identified in this condition shall be borne by the owner of Lot 11.
Let me say, let's go back to the
Sure.
condition you just articulated. It says move or replace. When you say replace, you mean move and replace, or I'm not understanding. If he replaces it, or if it replaces it, then won't it stay in the same place?
Well, we meant replace in the sense of we're extending it, but if it needs to be replaced at the same time, then it's extended.
Okay, thank you.
And then the 6th condition is going to be within 90 days of approval of this vacation request. The owner of each site shall remove the pavement associated within the vacated street that occupies their residential site, and then they will be sodded following the removal of the pavement. Point 7 is the petitioner shall pay the city of Cape Coral the cost of recording this resolution with the office of Lee County Clerk of Court. And 8 is the city shall record this resolution with the office of Lee County Clerk of Court following the receipt of the recording fees from the petitioners.
And as with the last hearing, I note that it says petitioner. Did you want to replace that with owner or developer?
Yes, we're going to be using petitioner and owner interchangeably. We can update that to owner, yes.
Fine, thank you very much. All right, I have no other questions. Thank you. This is a public hearing. Are there members of the public who wish to provide input or testimony? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the applicant's representative. Sir, could you come up, please? Thank you. Could you comment on that move or replace language in that condition?
I'm sorry, can you go back to the
Yeah,
language?
can we have a
That's
staff
the-
member assist with
You move or
getting
replace?
back to that section of the PowerPoint? Thank you. Yeah, it's number 5, and it says the owner of the site shall move or replace. Did you want to clarify that language, or are you okay with it as is?
Well, I do know that we have to move it because they don't want it on the property, even accessible via easement. They'd prefer it to be moved. So I think it's move and replace, because we have to replace the section of pipe which we're doing with the seawall, which is under construction right now. So that piece of pipe is being replaced, and then we'll extend it and move the outlet further toward the actual cul-de-sac. So I'm not sure that this says it exactly correctly. It probably should be move and replace as opposed to or.
Thank you. And just a technical thing, the city has referenced in the conditions of approval the petitioner. I think it'd be better served to say the owner. I don't
Yes, ma'am, I would
think
agree.
you care about that, but
Yes.
are you okay with
I
that?
care about it.
All
Would be
right.
the owner.
All right, any other testimony or comments?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you want to weigh in?
Good morning, John DeClario, Assistant City Attorney. I'd recommend on that condition number 5, possibly shall move and relocate. And then they will be extending the pipe. So if that's agreeable, I think that clarifies it to extend it and basically to move and relocate the existing stormwater pipe and extend this pipe to a new inlet construction within the right of way. I don't know if that's agreeable.
Your wordsmithing is extraordinary today. Can we have the applicant back up, please? Applicant's rep. Is that language as suggested by Mr. Neclario okay?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, fine, thank you very much. Can we have the city representative up, please? Are you okay with the suggested change?
Yes, Madam Hearing Examiner.
Any other testimony?
Not at this time, no ma'am.
Okay, fine, thank you very much. I will recommend that the vacation go forward as requested by the petitioner and recommended for approval by the city staff. with the modification, the two modifications that have been noted during this hearing. I will try to get the recommendation out as quickly as possible. And at this time, I'm closing the hearing. The date and time of the next hearing is Tuesday, May 16th, 2023, 9 a.m. here in council chambers. We stand adjourned at 9:50 a.m. Thank you, everyone.